Time Radio News headlines. A married man's been shot dead at his home in Londonderry. He was 35 and he died when 2 gunmen fired 8 shots through his front door. In Belfast there have been 3 petrol bomb attacks. They were all on the homes of businessmen.
The abiding memories for getting your porridge in the morning, listening to the latest catalogue of dead and destroyed, and at the same time my father was working in Harlan & Wolff, and there was no work in the shipyard. All the certainties, all the anchors that made them what they are were disappearing.
When I first came, the group of houses nearest to us that would have been quite difficult would have been over here, which is now known as Clonduff, and further on up the Ballygowan Road, which is known as Ryan Park. And families were moved into there when Lord Street and Madrid Street, there was riots and bombings.
What had happened was they had evicted all the Catholics from the Clonduff. All the Protestants in West Belfast, they did switch over, in other words. So I inherited these pupils who had been evicted from West Belfast.
And of course there were paramilitary elements began to emerge in various estates and so on. And there was a different discipline being applied outside the school to young people than there was inside the school.
Now, as members of the paramilitary, they were under strict instructions not to get into any rows in school. That was a laid down principle. Laid down principle was maybe me.
So for a number of years there was a lot of instability and a lot of infighting that would have gone on.
I got a phone call, my children were stoning the Catholic buses. So I got in my car and drove along the dual carriageway, and there were all the lads in their wee green blazers throwing stones at the buses from the Catholic school going along the carriageway. The police came, so they stoned them, and then the army came, so they stoned them. So then I came and they disappeared like rabbits. These wee green blazers just disappeared. And the officer with the army couldn't believe it. He said, "Well, who are you?" I said, "I'm the headmaster." He said, "But when you came, they just disappeared off the face of the earth." He said, "What kind of authority have you that they did this?" And I said, "I don't have any authority myself. It's the school's authority. And I happen to represent the school." Everything in the area was their Protestant heritage. It was their school, and I played on that it was their school, not my school.
With paramilitary groups gaining strength in East Belfast, the early 70s was a difficult time for the new head teacher.
He had a visit from some of the local heavies. Whatever he said to them, about a week later they came back with masses of stuff which had been pinched from the school by some of the local youngsters, including I don't know how many skeleton keys to get into the school. So, you know, he worked a miracle, a real miracle.
Now, the main thing that would have affected us were hoax phone calls. And the hoax phone calls were made by friends of the pupils who hoped the school would be closed and they would get home for the day.
We had a spate of bomb scares, and very good secretary, Olive, and she got this. The phone call would come,
and she was quite quick. She would say, is this a real thing or is it a hoax?" "It's only a hoax, miss." Phone went down.
I thought I had found a bomb in the school. Me and my friend had gone into the toilets one day and had heard this ticking sound.
There was an incinerator in the girls' toilet, and it was switched on that morning, and it made crackly sounds.
We genuinely, honestly thought this might have been a bomb.
And this was the time that the IRA sent off bombs by putting alarm clocks in them.
The bomb squad arrived with the robot.
Of course, it actually turned out to be the sanitary towel incinerator, but so Next day, you know, Mr. Cave, we were ordered into his office, and Mr. Cave told me, "Miss Rogers, please get your mother to teach you the facts of life," you know.
In 1974, the Protestant community no longer trusted its politicians. The province was brought to a standstill by a massive strike. The local paramilitaries visited the school.
3 of them came in. They had balaclavas, they had combat jackets, they were obviously in for why did we not close to support the workers' strike. One of them came forward and asked the questions. The other 2 stood behind them with their hands stuck in their jerkins, you see, ominously. But you keep everything light. You know, you don't get excited, and you don't shout, and you speak softly. So now and again, I have to say, "Sorry, what did you say?" Fortunately, the one who was spokesman gave me his name, and I said, "Oh, you're a brother of so-and-so who had been through the school." And I said, "What's he doing now?" And he said, "He's got a job in Muntons," which was the local shirt factory. And I said, "Well, it's all right, you see, for the one who's got a job and is working in Muntons, you know, but I have all the children to think of." I kept open.
And there was no power. Well, actually, we were able to boil water, because in the science room we turned on they had brought some burners and boiled water there for them, and heated soup, and, you know, things like that.
It was always made very clear that any issue that was going on outside stopped at the school door. So therefore, while the whole spiritual dimension was still important, and there was very much a spiritual dimension, particularly through the assemblies, it was very much a non-branded spirituality.
By and large, the school succeeded in being a pretty good haven, because there were a lot of young lads that were on the fringes or being drawn in there into paramilitarism. The school in general tried to keep clear of that, and I think in those terms probably succeeded quite well.
I'm Liz McBride, and I started Lisnasharragh in 1971 as a newly qualified teacher. My feeling about those times would have been that school was a normal situation, and we had to keep it a more normal situation.
Mr. Cave came to the school and changed the whole situation. Every pupil about to leave school was able to enter an examination and gain qualification if so desired. But here he comes along in the mid-70s and adds work experience to it. And it was the greatest thing ever.
I'm Stephen Woods, and I was at Lisnasharragh from 1975 until 1981. I'm glad I came to Lisnasharragh. I think I would have been lost had I gone to a school like Inst or Grosvenor. Lisnasharragh gave me opportunities that other schools didn't. Work experience, for example, that opened doors for me into broadcasting, which is what I wanted to do.
If you had asked a headmaster at the turn of the last century just what his school was used for, he would probably have told you the 3 R's: reading, writing and arithmetic. But ask a headmaster that same question today, and the chances are he would tell you a very different story indeed. Today, a greater emphasis is put on not only producing an intelligent young person, but someone who can mix with others and face the problems of everyday life.
Stephen was very keen on broadcasting, and he had a very nice approach to things. I knew he couldn't fail. It was just a matter of getting him suited.
I owe a lot to the school. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, work experience wasn't generally known about. Very few schools did it. Lisnasharragh more or less pioneered the scheme, and I owe a great debt to Ivan Ruddock. He sorted me out with a week's work experience at Downtown Radio.
Dear DJ Hendy, I listen to your show whenever I possibly can, because I'm at school. I'm in lower 6th at Grosvenor High School of Castlereagh Road. Would you please play a request for my mother and father Margaret and Jack Shepherd, and my sister Gillian and brother John, my granda and granny Shepherd, my uncles, aunts and cousins, especially William, who is doing his CSE exams at the moment.
Drove down to Downtown Radio and spoke to John Rossborough. And John got from me the idea that Stephen was dead keen to become a broadcaster. And he said, "All right, I'll try it."
Hot work requests.
97.4 Cool FM.
10 minutes past 10, how you doing? Tickets coming up for Oxygen, just a couple of weeks away. Your chance to be there for free coming up sometime in the next half hour. It was that week being here that led to me eventually going down that avenue and getting a job in broadcasting.
I never met one employer who was displeased with our school situation with them, but I met many, many happy employers who asked if they could employ this kid when they left.
Mr. Roddick established a lot of contacts within the local area for placements, and there was a very strong careers department.
It was a time of big unemployment, and it was to get worse over the next few years. So having a job at all and getting a wage would have been considered a huge thing. Up here was Dickie Whitford, and I was in his English class. This was his room here. He called me into his room and he said, young Houston, he says, I know what you're at. He says, you think you're Elvis, and I'm here to tell you, you're not Elvis, I'm Elvis. That's what he said. And I felt so exposed, you know, because he was like, how did he work that out? How did he know that I thought I was Elvis?
I was a kid in the 70s. We'd eat our meals as a family, the same time every night of the week, and we always knew what we'd be having. And nobody worried about what we ate, and the kids at school, they weren't overweight. I played 45s at 78, 'cause you could do that sort of thing. I was a kid when Elvis died, and a man came on the news at night.
There were nearly 800 pupils in the 1970s, and there was always something happening after school.
I was a kid, so I couldn't see that when the king passed on to history, he took a part of me that still believed in Santa Claus and Hollywood.
I was so afraid to come to Lisnasharragh because it was called Lisnasharragh Secondary Intermediate School, and they used to get called intermediate idiots. And I can remember that if you were first former, you were told that you were going to get your head flushed down the loo. But it was more like a big family, and you would have had one member of your family here, and then it would have been the extended family would have been at the same school, and then everybody got to know each other. You would have known every single person in your year, and perhaps the year above, and some from the year below. And I don't think any other school would have that. Can't remember the floor being as well maintained as this. Oh, see the old netball net? Can't believe it was as high as that. We also played badminton in here, and gymnastics was a big thing at the time because Olga Corbett's time that inspired so many young kids.
We did what was called the Crosstown Run, and it was along the Knockgill carriageway, down the Castlereagh Road, and along Montgomery and back up to the school. And we had a teacher at the time called Ed Heaney, or Da Heaney as he was known. And Da Heaney would get in his car. There's us out in the pouring rain, running, sleet, snow, the whole works, all the way back to the school whilst he's yelling out of the blue Cortina.
Now I was a kid in the 70s. We used to go to different stores for groceries, 'cause we didn't have malls, but we had more trees, and people didn't worry about stress. And the shops all closed by 6 p.m. and when Friday came, well, we had a weekend.
Lisnasharragh didn't have its own playing fields, so field sports were down at the nearby Craigatech.
We had to walk from here down to Craigatech as it was then, but I can remember that the girls had to walk down in their green pants.
This is where I sported my big green knickers. Yeah, my primary education was in Dundalk, and we were 20-30 years behind the times, and little girls did not run about. So you can imagine, you know, the shock I got when I come up to Belfast into Lisnasharragh, and within 2 days was told that PE was in one's knickers.
And for those who didn't quite measure up, there was what was known as the paddywhack. And I'm sure the guys might remember the paddywhack in PE. It consisted of a trainer, which was about size 12, a huge trainer. And inside this trainer was a golf ball, for effect, and it was one hell of a deterrent.
Brilliant. Please drop to feet. And stop. Okay, now we're going to lead into our next move. Half turn to seat drop.
My name is Carol Hans. When I first talked here, I was Carol McCready. You thought it was Christine? There you go. Well, games, we did a lot of netball, but we would have also been very arty in that we did a lot of gymnastics and dance and trampolining. That would have been, we did a lot of that, and then did a lot of dance competitions and Duke of Edinburgh and canoeing, mountaineering.
And they're going for gold.
Mr. Officer, who was PE teacher, and who was a very keen supporter of the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, he said to me, any camping, any canoe work, anything to do with outdoor activities, call on me. And without him, I don't know what I'd have done.
They were really so good and so enthusiastic about it. They took us away to Ardnabannon. When we were there, we learned how to pitch a tent, how to do some orienteering. You could do some rock climbing.
Ardnabannon is a most fantastic place. Loads of camping and hill walking and canoeing, and it were great, great days.
There were a lot of things with the Duke of Edinburgh Award we had never experienced before. It opened you up to knowing how other people ticked at such an impressionable and young age that not everybody will see things as you see it.
The ages of the school leavers crept up, and it reached 16. Well, that was terrific for me because I was able to maintain contact with bronze and silver right through to gold. I remember 13 golds in the 1 year, and it was very evenly split, 7 boys and 6 girls. I still see their faces. 96 golds by 1989, but hundreds of bronze and silver.
My name's Jack Gallagher, and I went to Lisnasharragh in 1979 as vice principal, and I was there until 1993. Really, it was a pleasure to come and be mentored, in a sense, by somebody like Ernie Cave, because it was about putting children and their needs at the very centre of the education system, and cutting away all the stupidity, and making sure that what it was about was teachers in classrooms in front of children.
Well, his style was very different from Mr. Cave. And some people, I think, at that stage weren't keen on being too familiar with pupils. But this was all part of establishing a good relationship, a positive relationship with the pupils.
And he had an excellent rapport with those, and very, very caring for those children.
It was a school in decline to some extent on the grounds that the population around the school was ageing, and that's a natural feature in most schools.
The children move on, mum and dad stay, so it sinks down. It's inevitable.
At that time, we were into the open enrolment, which meant that a child could choose a school regardless of where the school was in relation to his own home. Our numbers were starting to drop because the estate up in the Branhill, which would have been a very big feeder of ours, was starting to stabilise in that the children were leaving school and becoming older. So Mr. Gallagher quite rightly saw that there would be a problem in numbers.
It's very difficult when a school starts to decline because a smaller number of teachers has to provide the curriculum and the whole range of extracurricular experiences. And when I became headmaster, I wanted to have pupils on seats in order that we would have a vibrant, viable school.
So he started to market the school and started actually to go out touting for business.
And he went down to the bottom of the Woodstock Road and got, was it 1 or 2 bus loads who came up.
We started then to take pupils from the Belfast area, from the Lower Woodstock, from the Lower Ravenhill area, and of course that brought many challenges.
I was responsible for keeping the big official register, and I'd have had pages of single parent families. But I remember him saying to somebody who was complaining about these children and could not sort of get rid of some of them, he said, If they weren't there, you wouldn't have a job. So he kept the school open.
Jake Gallagher had a very outward-looking policy. His feeling was that the school was very much part of the community, and that we needed to let the community see just what Lisnasharragh had on offer.
We had a wee group called Kids from Fame who went out and did dancing and gymnastics and did plays in French and played musical instruments.
At one stage there was a one-act play, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was, yes.
And just created a really good impression of the school, and our enrolment grew.
Right from the start, school shows were always a big event, with everyone getting involved.
To me, it's absolutely vital just to see children smile and their eyes shine in front of an audience. Children who have low self-esteem suddenly discover that they can do.
You could end up with maybe 150 or 200 kids taking part in this. And it is actually one of the big memories in their life. If you say to them, what do you remember about school? They'll remember being in one of those productions.
We were casting for My Fair Lady and looking for people who could sing.
Is it underneath the willow tree that I've been?
Greg was in my English class. Very quiet, very shy child, quite a small child.
Where is she? Oh, I close my eyes to see.
Greg sang for me and he was immediately sent down to Mrs. Stafford.
I was absolutely amazed. He just had the most wonderful voice and he was charming.
Who can say where she
We did Oliver, the next year The King and I, and then Guys and Dolls.
Till I am beside the someone who I can mean something to. Where is
Earlier this month, Channel 4 launched its own search for a star, but this time the star they're looking for will be launched into the world of opera. The show is aptly called Opportunity, and out of 2,500 original applications, it's now down to the final 6. And one of those 6 is a 21-year-old man from East Belfast. So would you please welcome James Little. Good to see you, James. Where were you 4 years ago?
I was still at school. I think it was just before I went to Grosvenor.
James was a very talented, very charming boy who did not like to do homework. Failed to do his homework for me on 2 occasions. And on the 3rd occasion, I gave him the choice. He could either go to detention or he could go and join the school production.
I thought, all right, I'll go to choir instead of detention.
At that stage, I think we would have reckoned that James had no voice at all. He growled his way through Bill Sykes. And then over the next summer, a miracle happened. And he opened his mouth and this bass voice came out. It was incredible.
There's an old man called the Mississippi. That's the old man that I'd like to be. What does he care if the world...
I think they were role models for the rest of the boys
They
in the
certainly
school.
were, yes.
Once those 2 boys got in, it wasn't seen as being sissy or anything. The boys came flooding to productions after that.
Old Man River, that old man River, he must know something.
We still go back on the memories of the friendliness, the support, and the children. The children were by far the most good thing about Lisnasharragh.
Mr. Cave taught me the importance of developing children and developing people. I think Mr. Gallagher taught me the importance of developing the school as a whole and developing links with agencies outside school, and particularly developing links with parents.
In my time as headmaster, we developed a homeschool partnership agreement as part of our outreach programme to attract pupils.
And a parent would sign. We had a set of things that we wanted to agree that they would support their children, that they would do certain things, that the school would do certain things, and the pupil. So it was a three-way agreement.
And it worked extremely well. I think it worked because we had such a good relationship with parents. You know, we had their full support.
But ultimately we wanted a very simple thing, and that is the children would be happy within the school situation. Because unless they were happy, they weren't going to progress.
And one of the things we did to encourage children also was we had a record of achievements programme, which Ernie Cave and I initiated together. And it was saying every positive thing that you do in this school, taking part in the school play, playing for the soccer team, your work experience will be in it, your exam results will be in it, your reports will be in it. And the kids had this feeling all the time that there were standards, there were benchmarks being set down, and I believe in that kind of measurement.
I eventually became head, and for me, Lisnasharragh was a school that retained throughout the centrality of the child. I'm not saying other schools didn't do that, but for us it was always at the centre and very important.
My name is Christine Bruce, and I taught in Lisnasharragh from 1980 to 2006.
We introduced quite early on this child development course, which is now old hat, but then was very new. And as part of that, to give the pupils really hands-on experience of what it was like in dealing with children and raising children.
This is actually a girl called Heather Grayson, and this is her mum Sheena, and Alison Faulkner, who was a pupil. Heather's now, I think, a mother herself. So she was our very first baby who came to the mothers and toddlers. It was started off really to help the girls who were studying childcare, as the subject was called at that time, just to see what life with a very small child is like. And it became quite, it was very aware of how difficult it really was sometimes for young mothers. And as you can see from this photograph here, we have quite a collection of mums and babies, and that's me quite some few years ago. 2003, we planted our Field of Hope in the school. The children raised something in the region of £762. And the Field of Hope is the Marie Curie Cancer Care fundraiser, and this shows you everyone bending down, putting in their daffodils. These daffodils obviously thickened up as the years went on. I was really quite concerned what's going to happen to my daffodils, but we'll see.
My name's Lauren Egg, and I joined Lisnasharragh in 1999, and I've been teaching here for 9 years now. Probably the highlight of my time here with the choir was UTV Choir of the Year. It's been a very difficult year. Just because we've had so few kids, it's been hard to be motivated. But we've, had to work with the children that we've got and, keep things going for their sake.
I'm Elaine Curry, and I came to Lisnasharragh in 2001 and left in 2006. My favourite teacher was my second, because I spent most of my time with her because of all the music and stuff that I did. I had a really good time at Lisnasharragh. I really did. Like, the time we had here was great fun, and the education I had here was brilliant as well, you know. The grades and stuff that came out of our year, it was really, really good. Then afterwards we heard that school was closing down.
Politics was not something I had any interest in, but I'd already been asked twice to be Mayor of Castlereagh, so I decided that when I was asked to do it in the year of the freedom of the borough for George Best, because I am a football fanatic, I decided, yep, I would do Mayor of Castlereagh and I would thoroughly enjoy that year.
George has had many accolades paid to him, but I suppose for me one of the really memorable ones was the day he was awarded the freedom of the borough of Castlereagh. Obviously it's the area that we were born and brought up in.
He made things very, very easy for us, you know. He was so easy to please and so flexible. And I know he had a reputation for letting people down, but I never seen that side of George Best. I never doubted for 1 minute he would let me down, and he didn't.
Yes, Kim was a lovely, lovely girl, and I know she's a complete football nut, as is her mum. And she was just so pleased to have been, you know, in office at that time, and she treated George very well, and she treated the family very well.
It was almost like fanatical fans. I mean, how he lived with those kind of pressures is quite extraordinary.
We love George Best.
The day of his funeral was really very sad in here, and the pupils in particular were devastated, and there was really a constant knock at my door saying, Miss, what are we going to do about this? Miss, what can we do? What should we do about this? So really, as a response to their request, we opened the school on the morning of his funeral. It was a Saturday morning.
I opened up the school that day. The kids came in, it was pouring out of the heavens, and they took all their brollies up and they stood along, you know, the slip road and the carriageway.
The cortege is still slowly making its way up, not quite yet on the Knockdual carriageway. And people turning out in their hundreds along the Knockdual carriageway.
I have vivid memories of so many things. Driving along the roads, seeing grown men with the tears streaming down their face, seeing pupils from Lisnasharragh School standing in their school uniforms on a cold, wet, miserable day along that carriageway.
When some of George Best's mates had actually, you know, clapped as they were passing, it's like a mark, you know, acknowledging that we were there as his old school.
I was up the hill at Stormont and the rain welted down. What a day it was. It was absolutely pouring down, and yet there were thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people there.
He was so highly respected by both parts of the community. I mean, you know, people didn't care where he was from.
He crossed the divide. It didn't matter what colour, what creed, and it's just how he was in his own life. And it was amazing to see, even in my father's garden, and it's well spoken about, that Celtic jerseys alongside Rangers jerseys.
When he passed away, I was standing here one day, one of the haters, and I just happened to look up and noticed that one of the very first tree had actually died. You know, it had started losing its leaves.
In the autumn of 2006, it was announced that Lisnasharragh High School would close.
It was a very attractive school, well ahead of its time. I think that it's one of those situations where the education authorities should not let that kind of decline happen. You know, they should have an overall plan for all the schools in their area.
I would always feel that Lisnasharragh perhaps was the third school in the carriageway. And
Unfairly?
Unfairly, yes, I believe. And it's to do with perceptions of people.
There's Lisnasharragh down in there. You go a bit further over, after the Krieger Road, there's Knockbreda. You travel a wee bit over, up on the left, there's Newtonbreda, all in the same main road.
I don't think they've closed the right school. But we were the first there, and the powers that be have decided, and I don't know why. Well, I suppose Lisnasharragh had the lowest numbers, but I think they're talking about replacing Knockbreda, so maybe just move them over.
Along that dual carriageway, there's a lot of competition for places. Lagan College is 1,200 pupils. You wonder why it was necessary to open another school 1 mile as the crow flies from Lisnasharragh, which always had some Catholic teachers and Catholic pupils, and where I felt we could have had a totally integrated attitude. If more Catholic children had come, we would have been able to manage that.
Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reeds. Some say love.
I'm retiring now. Obviously if the school wasn't closing early, I most certainly wouldn't be going. But I'm very happy to say that I'm leaving teaching, feeling very positive about it. Sorry to be leaving, but taking away lots of good thoughts about it.
And people say, oh, why didn't you move on? You should have moved. I might well have done better if I'd moved, but it was such a happy place.
It was always painted well, it was always well maintained and taken care of. It just looks exactly like it did when I was here, and you know, it's a real shame that this school's closed.
For me, it was 34 years of meeting great pupils and seeing pupils develop and feeling the warmth that they have for the school.
Today is very sad. I am trying still to encourage people to view this as the start of something new, the closing of an old chapter but the beginning of a new one. And I think we have managed it not too badly, but I imagine there will be a lot of tears in the eyes at the end of today.
It's really quite surreal. You're sort of looking out there, expecting to see some of your friends mucking about. Oh, my voice is going a bit.
I've been here for 31 years, so anything that I am as a teacher or anything that I am as a school manager and leader, I learned here. What I learned was the importance of integrity, the importance of working with people, the importance of always keeping pupils at the core, and the importance of encouraging pupils to ask questions, to become independent.
I think I did establish that we were in business of doing the best we could for every kid in the school.
The children should be educated in a safe and secure and supportive environment was right at the centre of our ambition. And when the inspectors wrote to the staff and said, and to the parents and to the world, this is a good school, I felt it got it exactly right, you know.
Mrs. Thompson saying to me that I had a future, that I was bright, that I was intelligent, those kind of things. I mean, encouragement then, like now, encouragement's scarce on the ground. And the fact that here I am, you know, lots of years later, remembering that those people said those things to me and they meant a lot to me, and I've never forgotten them. And if I talk about this school, they're the things I talk about. But the best thing about Lisnasharragh, girls from Craigie.
That's the end of Lisnasharragh.
And I miss you. Just not enough to write a song, but you're terrified that I couldn't live without you. And that's all I'm prepared to say. Yeah, I miss you. Just not enough to be afraid to say it. Not confident enough to know how to play it. And too confused to walk away. And she turns to me and says, this is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. You are my lover, I'm my friend. No fear, no lies, and no pretense. This is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. No matter where the river bends, someday we both will meet again. This is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. You are my lover and my friend, with no fear, no lies, and no pretense. Yeah, 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 this is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. No matter where the river bends, someday we both will meet again.